Shack. Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped but it's no hype. From this height it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in. Full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio. Once again with your host Nick Burnaby here on ucy.tv/TAMR. Make sure you guys bookmark us. Hold on, I got a jet coming overhead. Go ahead, DB, introduce yourself, man.
Oh yeah, how's everybody doing? Happy Wednesday, happy hump day, and it's definitely jet time over all of San Diego for any of our listeners that are in different states, different cities. You can tell we're gearing up. I've been reading quite a bit about what's going on, Nick, and I can tell you that if Russia decides to put sanctions on us and collapses our dollar, and China basically goes along with those plans, then it's going to be the 2 against 1 international banker dream scenario we've been talking about, right?
That's what it seems like, man. I mean,
we're gearing up. Look at all these. I've never ever I've lived in San Diego my whole life, around air bases my whole life, and I can never remember the types of awesome planes I've been seeing recently, and then all day, just the last 5, 6, 7 days. Just nonstop, even all night.
Yeah, man. I just had a helicopter buzz me like an hour ago. It literally was only about 150, 200 feet above my house, and it was like one of those Blackhawks. It was huge, man. And then a jet just came right overhead too. It's just, it's just ridiculous. It's like there's a flight path right over my house now. It's weird.
Well, they're flexing because there's probably Chinese or Russian subs and all kinds of things watching, their own satellites watching, and we're flexing our assets. I mean, if they have any illusion of trying to do any kind of an invasion tactic, I don't think it's going to work out for them.
No, I think it's long been known that America is invade-proof.
Exactly.
I mean, we took the British on when they were the top dogs, and that was back in the day before we had any kind of, superior weaponry and stuff like that. Now just no one can really invade us. They could try, and that's one of the things why I don't think that we need this huge foreign policy, this huge defense. And Condoleezza Rice released an op-ed in Washington Post a few days ago. And I just came across it today, and it's like so hawkish. She's just like basically saying, she's like, the reason why all this stuff is happening is we're not spending enough on defense. It's like, are you serious?
Yeah, and then she was getting slammed in the user remarks, which I think is hilarious. It's the whole culture is changing now because people that even have a moderate interest in world affairs understand that we are kind of this giant vampire squid on a lot of the world's resources, policies, and generally global happiness. And it's just, it can't be allowed to perpetuate. You know, people generally want different cultures and countries. And yeah, we want a more open world, definitely, but we don't need an all-encompassing world government, authoritarian government to take over. Yeah, eventually there'll be a winner because we know there's the 3 super states and they're going to duke it out in some form or fashion. But what they have in mind is no good for anybody, including their own families. So I just don't understand why this massive buildup in saber rattling has to continually go on. What could come of it that could be any good for anybody?
Yeah, you know, and she was basically just saying that we need to start moving all of these assets around and start, you know, beefing up all of our sanctions and start isolating them, you know, diplomatically and economically and stuff. It's like, really? It's like we're doing now at this point. It's basically an admission that we're just protecting corporate assets now.
Well, I mean, we are a corporation, so we're controlling our assets, trying to acquire new ones. The world has a finite amount of very strategic resources, and we're going to go grab them. And yeah, I mean, like the head of the snake is the corporate, you know, controlled intelligence agency. Which, you know, what I think is funny now with the whole Feinstein calling out the CIA for basically spying on her. And I know Snowden made it into this big ordeal too, where he said, hey, you know, this is completely, you know, it's just, we can't allow it to continue. We can't allow this to continue. And she's the one signing away all these bills.
Yeah, Snowden came out right away, man, and he was just like, you know, this is like, I can't believe that she even did this because it's so hypocritical because she's been sitting there defending all this NSA spying on ordinary citizens. And I mean, this is the government. They should have oversight. There should be people spying on the government so that we know what they're doing. Now, I don't agree with the CIA, whatever. The CIA is part of the government. Now, what I've been trying to figure out is what exactly is at play here because in my opinion, this whole thing seems it seems like more like theater, and it just seems like it's just out there for the people to, you know, think that there's something going on. But there's also people that think that it shows that there's some kind of rift within the government. What do you think?
I do. I think there's I mean, you could look it up online and research it yourself, but all the indicators say it's a turf war. You know, if you envision the NSA being founded in 1917, you know, right before the onset of our involvement in World War I, and then where we subsequently went in and basically mopped up a depleted German army. You know, they were the paragon. They were the original agency, and out of them, 30 years later, after the end of World War II, the CIA was formed. Now, why was that formed? Well, because we all know about Operation Paperclip. We love to talk about it. We'd love to talk about how that particular operation and a lesser known one called Operation High Jump, where the guys that defended made sure to wipe out all the top brass that didn't from the Nazi Party in Antarctica of all places, and everybody can look that up. We've had 2 Americas. We've had this corporate, completely clandestine, in the shadows, you know, all-powerful globalist agenda, world government side, and then there is still the American manifest destiny, preeminent side, which is, you know, believe it or not, the NSA. Now, is them fighting a good thing? Well, maybe it's really the only thing that's kept me and you from seeing a drone army being used on us, because one of these 2 parties has got to eventually dominate unless we can rise up together and kind of boot them both out and establish something that's going to be loyal to Americans, but also to the human race itself.
Yeah, and I think that's the great challenge of our time, you know, and it's like we finally have this communication ability with the internet where we can finally see, okay, this is what's been happening over and over in history. We can see that the system is not right. Everyone knows the system is wrong. I mean, almost anyone in any country you go to there's going to be issues there, you know, so I think we could all agree on that. And if we can start trying to build a way out of it, you know, while these guys are bickering away and having their own power struggles and their own infights, we take advantage of the fact that these guys have these huge egos that they have to satisfy. And when they're not paying attention because they're fighting each other, we keep building.
And what happens next has to come in concert with China and Russia, because they're the other two heads of the Hydra. You know, there are the three super states, and the people that live over there need to have their own, what we love to call a soft revolution, which is we're going to take over through a consciousness shift worldwide of the three superpowers. You know, the rest of the world looks on in dread at what's going on, because were anything to break out, there'd be really little to nothing they could all do, even if they all in concert tried to group together to protect themselves. It's just the technology, manpower, and manufacturing capabilities just ridiculously better in those three countries. So nobody wants to see that breakout everywhere. You know what I mean? They all are waiting for China, Russia, and especially here, because man, we still are in a lot of ways free enough to just wake up and start changing things and start rolling back things that we see as against all human rights.
I think what we're looking at now is whether we're going to have a renaissance or another dark ages, you know, and it's happened in history, man. It always happens, you know, and humanity gets to a point where they get to that breaking point, you know, where there's a sea change, and then that's when you have the renaissance. Right. And then you got to go in the other way when there's a sea change going towards this fascist type of ideology, and then you have the dark ages, you know, right. and so it's a matter now. It's like we have a choice, you know, we can make a choice. Are we going to slip back into the dark ages, or are we going to go into a new enlightenment, a brand new one with awesome technology?
Well, it's going to be a little bit of both. And the question is, when's something going to hit that's going to knock out the grid, because the grid's just exposed to whatever. It could be a man-made EMP, it could be a solar flare, it could be a variety of different things, but eventually the grid that's driving our high-tech lifestyle but is above ground and archaic and ancient, and that's worldwide, by the way. There's really no grid in the world that's all subterranean and all encased and all hardened. At some point the grid will get knocked out, and that's going to be what, you know, all these top elites are preparing for. Now, how do we all survive it? It's like we just say every time that the off-grid thing has to become the regular thing, and then we use the grid as a convenience factor, but then if something goes wrong with it, well, we're good. We can back ourselves up. We can still grow food, pump water with windmills, and so on. And we're not going to be completely, you know, in a pandemonium and a chaos and a dog-eat-dog situation.
Yeah, man, and that's why we just have to keep building and, you know, build our networks, build our ideas, our currencies, our economies from the ground up, rethink everything, you know. It's got to be cooperative, you know, instead of this corporate pyramid style, which always ends up happening, you know, it always creates the same outcome. You know, and that's what we have to learn from history, because it's been happening over and over and over again. It's like we never figure it out. I mean, how many countries have risen and fallen with the same type of ideology? I mean, there must be hundreds, if not even thousands, you know, throughout the years that have. I mean, you can name the big ones like the Roman Empire, you know, and the British Empire and all this stuff. But think of all the small countries. All the little countries in Europe, you know, Luxembourg and stuff, that have had kingdoms and different forms of government and monarchies and all this stuff. It's like it keeps repeating and repeating and failing, and it's like, are we never going to learn from this?
Well, eventually technology is going to reach a point where somebody with the will, determination, and ability to take control will be decisively advanced, and nobody can really mess with them. And, you know, there was all these theories that were going around Crimea about this giant UFO. Did you happen to read anything about that, Nick? Hello?
Yeah, I heard about it, but I didn't really read much into it.
Yeah. Basically, there was, you know, a bunch of videos showing this huge, basically cigar-shaped UFO over Crimea, and a lot of people were thinking, hey, this is some kind of secret, you know, multi-trillion-dollar weapon system developed by us. And it was over there just as a threat. Hey, you know, you can take whatever Crimea, but don't start anything more, because that's what we have. And a lot of people said, no way, it's got to be something else, you know, otherworldly or other dimensionally or something. But there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on right now where who knows what kind of tech any country has up its sleeve, really.
Yeah, that's the big question. You know, the technology that's going to come into play, it amplifies, like one guy can become what 100 guys would be. And then the one thing we always bring up on this show is about the autonomous drones and the autonomous bots and stuff like that. This stuff it's making the Terminator movies into a reality. It could turn ugly really quick. So the thing is that we're already seeing these drones that are being run by algorithms. They're already using heat signatures to drop strikes in Afghanistan and in Yemen and places like that. They're autonomous. They don't even have people driving them. Yeah, there's probably a guy that overlooks, makes sure everything's running right, but these things take the shots on their own. And that, to me, is the most dangerous thing, considering all these robots that are being rolled out lately, that we're seeing from like DARPA and all that stuff. That's just the stuff that the public gets to see. So the top secret technology that they're working on, they probably already have a clone army. I mean, there's a good chance that they're already starting to build robot soldiers. I mean, it sounds like it's far out there, but think about what they're already showing us, what we're already seeing. And,
what does DARPA have out? The whatever they call the cheetah bots, and then the mule that can carry a submachine gun, which they don't even need anymore. Now they have more advanced technology than simple projectile weapons like using large caliber ammunition. So it's really, who knows what they have. Who knows what they have, and who knows what's built in, and who knows what could be used against anybody at any time for anything. You know what I mean? There's so much flexing going on right now. And I think there's a lot of things going on that are averting a massive war. I think there's assets right now kind of being traded. It seems like, while we're watching this going on, there's all these other things going on. Israel got nailed again. They got just completely barraged. And that didn't make really any news. And I guess Iron Dome hit a lot of them, but a few of them snuck in there. And that's going to start up. There's always, whenever there's something major going on, or many major things going on, a bunch of minor things pop up too. And it's all just kind of like a big script.
Yeah, it's most of this stuff is starting to seem more and more reality showish. All these news headlines and this whole thing with this missing plane. It's just becoming like reality TV. Like I can't even really take any of it serious anymore. It's hard to even tell what's going on, unless you have like real sources that are right there at the place where it's happening. And I think that's where we need to make our improvements in our media, is try to somehow get direct sources of this news as it's happening.
Yep, and what I'm seeing in this, the disappearing plane, basically theater going on now, where what I've read and what I've seen about it is that the cell phones were continuing to ring. They weren't getting dead signal. So meaning that they were continuing to go and bounce off somewhere. So why couldn't, at least if the plane had crashed into the water, why couldn't things be found? Why couldn't the black box be found? Why is there just an oil slick, as if the plane had done a fuel dump at some point or something to try to preserve its flight? Because, I don't know, maybe an engine had set on fire or something like that. And then now the stolen European passports appear to be placed on names that appear to be the Uyghur or whatever the minority sect is in Eastern or Western China. The one that always revolt.
Oh,
the Muslim.
The Muslims that live in China.
Right. So these are the new patsy types. And what happened? Did this plane become invisible? Because now I read more about this superconductor company and the employees in it that were on the plane, and find out that they were using some of this light bending technology. And, why were they en route to Beijing of all places? Were they there to land to sell information, or, were they guided in and then the plane became radar invisible and it dumped fuel? And then, I don't know, who knows? Who knows what's going on? There's so many different theories now. It's bewildering.
Maybe they're on the island with John Locke and those guys from the Lost TV show.
I know. I mean, that area of the Asian Sea is kind of its own Bermuda Triangle. I think they call it it's near the Devil's Sea or something like that. So it's a place where something like that could be used in concert with a new technology, and something could just drop off radar signal and they'd never be able to find it, and it could have dumped its oil and then been collected who knows where, and who knows.
Now, the other thing I saw, which is weird about this thing, is that they had these photos of these guys that had the stolen passports, which the media has kind of inferred, like, okay, if there's any terrorists on the plane, it's probably these guys. And it turns out that the photo was photoshopped, because there's two pictures. One of them is one of the guys, and the other one is the same guy from the torso down, and then the other guy from the torso up. It's like clearly photoshopped. It's like they didn't even alter the bottom half at all. Like, it's completely identical. And then they had to admit to it, and this is the official photo that was being used by the authorities that are in charge of investigating this thing. And then they had to admit, oh yeah, apparently it's been altered, but we didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. They literally said that. It's like, are you serious? What the hell is going on here? Is this another Boston bombing, Sandy Hook jumble? I mean, what's going on? It's just insane.
Yeah, we could keep saying it every time. It's just, it doesn't even look like reality anymore. I can't watch it anymore. It's almost to the point where only alternative media makes any sense at all. If I watch anything at all that's on a major channel, it just looks totally contrived. Like they're making it up.
So, my buddy Mikhail, he's been on our show a few times, and he's an independent journalist for StoryLeak.com, and a lot of his stuff gets republished on InfoWars and then on the Drudge Report. So, I mean, he's reaching a lot of people. Anyway, apparently one of his stories that he did a couple days ago, actually about this cop that was threatening this fireman, dude, saying that he would give his left nut to kick down his door and take his guns away. This guy was saying this on his public Facebook profile, and my buddy made a story about it. Now the cop got suspended, and now they stopped and they're stopping the door-to-door confiscation of guns, dude. I think this was in Connecticut.
Good. I mean, it was completely just man, all these guys that went for it are going to get probably recalled here pretty soon. We're going to have a similar thing to Colorado where I think they said 3 or 4 guys just completely were thrown out, and then 8 had to go up for re-election and kind of whimper and cry about how they were pressured into doing it by their party, and then please don't, lump them in with them and everything like that. It's going to happen everywhere. Everybody knows now what a gun grab means. Even people that are anti-gun, for just strictly the idea of having them out there in the wrong hands, understands now that they're already in the wrong hands. Look at the police brutality going on. If they're armed and they can be used for the wrong purposes, and we know that they can be and they are being, then we need to have our ability to, assert change how we see fit, because we are the country. Yeah,
the problem is with this whole gun grab is that there's a lot of Democrats that are pro-gun rights, pro-Second Amendment. And that's why I'm like, I can't wait for there to be a Republican president this coming round. Not because I like the Republicans, but because then we can really start having a conversation with the people that are on the left, the Democrats that are actually anti-establishment progressives that are finally going to come around after there's a Republican in office. You know what I mean? And yep. I think that's going to be a place where we can start really making some more connections, man, to grow this movement out.
Right, and it's got to come really, really fast, because the way things are angling, we're on the verge of a controlled and planned collapse of our own, me and yours currency, with a concurrent bank run probably soon to come. And the people have got to be on their toes, not keep too much in banks, make sure you run to credit unions and get things moved around, because these large multinational banks are going to do clean house soon, because they have to feed hungry mouths in the complex, as we all like to call what these guys work for. And the giant company these insiders work for is basically going bankrupt and broke right now. and they're about to surrender the dollar as the global standard. They're probably going to give in to the yuan. I mean, I hate to say it. We've always been talking about how the petro yuan is coming, and I think it's really on the verge. I think Ukraine has a lot to do with that too.
Now, we all know centralized monetary system is no good, right? We all know that centralized monetary system is ripe for abuse, considering what's gone on with the Fed. And with the European Central Bank as well, and other central banks. They all pretty much do the same thing. Now, fortunately for Americans right now, and this is what's really keeping us above this whole bubble about everyone else in the world that's having a way less, a lesser standard of living, is that fortunately for us, we have the reserve currency, and everyone basically has to create transactions on our system. And almost all the big transactions have to be done in the dollar. So we're going to have a rude awakening when the world decides, when Russia and China decide, okay, well, we're only going to trade in, we're not going to trade in US dollar anymore because these guys are, not working with us. Now we're just going to trade in the yuan, or we're going to trade in a new currency that we're going to create.
Yep. I mean, the new currency will be the petro yuan as far as on the books and a proper currency, which is exactly why they don't want Bitcoin to be used. And Russia's going to go ahead and not accept Bitcoin now. Bitcoin will be used in the U.S. because, we're going to have to transition to is electronic currency just to keep some semblance of the illusion going and prevent an outright revolution. And this is what I'm thinking is they're going to ease into this by cutting out most of the benefits to the poorer classes and kind of use their uprisings as a way to mob everyone together, get total control going, and then institute what they're going to call a fix to the banking system, which is an electronic currency. And everyone knows when that comes what everyone's been talking about forever, that within the mandates of Obamacare in 2017, we're supposed to all be chipped, and it's going to have our medical and financial information in us, attached to our DNA. I mean, that's the ultimate branding like cattle thing coming, and it's coming to a clinic near you when you go to get your physical. Probably it may not even be told to you; it may just be injected into you.
Well, the thing about the RFID chips is that I don't know if you guys heard if you remember that story from that girl. She was like a middle schooler, I think in Texas or something. And the school was implementing these mandatory RFID tags for all the kids. It was like like their ID or a pass or whatever to keep track of these kids. And the one student, basically said, "I'm not going to do it." And her parents backed her up, and they stood on it on religious grounds. And then I believe the school suspended her or something like that. And then there was a huge media outroar. And then the school had to go back on the decision. I mean, it's already being experimented with. A lot of people's animals already have them in their ears too,
right.
and it's not that far fetched. I mean, 2017, that's a long time from now, and a lot of things could change. A lot of things can happen. And it seems
there'll be another so-called election, and there'll be a savior in the name of Rand Paul. And he'll be under the Libertarian Party, which has already been co-opted, and it's going to become a legitimate third party, but it'll just be co-opted again in more, directed dissent in another form or fashion. And this is how the game continues to be played. And it's all just basically everything that's been happening now is to pay China. We're so in debt to them, so ridiculously in debt to them that we have to continue to go fight other countries and take their stuff so we can pay China because they won't take the dollar anymore. You know what I mean? It's all the bankers that were showing up suicided. It's everything all lumped in. It's just to avoid the massive end all be all World War III scenario with full invasion type response.
Well, I've been seeing a lot of people talking about China starting to try to make a gold-backed currency or something. And if they did that, then for sure we would know that would become the new reserve currency because it would be a lot more stable than this fiat stuff.
Well, stable, but I mean, it's going to divide the world in a real way. The West, the EU, anybody in NATO is going to kind of side with us because we're the real industrial base for that sector of the world. And then, of course, Africa and South America will become kind of proxy battlegrounds for domination, and we'll go electronic with all the cons and pros of it, and there'll be a lot of cons to it. And the rest of them will go to that physical cash, hardback, gold-backed petro yuan. I mean, we're ready. We're already going to be ready to transition off gas and oil here real soon. That's part of why Afghanistan was grabbed because of the lithium and stuff like that. We're ready to go already off oil. This is just a controlled death and collapse so they can grab all the power and the control they need.
Yeah, I mean, what Condoleezza Rice was saying was that they were going to try to collapse the price of the oil in order to punish Russia.
Why not?
Yeah, but I mean,
easy. We can go off it, and who cares about the average American, because they're not going to ever do anything with all this cable and KFC and Pepsi and all that. No one's going to do anything while they're still fat and happy.
Well, that's up to us.
That's what they're counting on, at least.
That's why we got to keep spreading the info, and then building ideas that work.
Right.
People can actually have something to look at. And I think that's a huge part of it, so that it gives people the peace of mind. Okay, well, I'm investing my thinking into something that I know works, and it's peace of mind.
Yeah, exactly. Just going to be going back to making sure you can get food and water secure without power from the grid through your own volition. And then everything will fall into play where you're not going to get so crazy and paranoid if anything happens.
So, Ukraine has completely fallen off the front pages for some reason now. And it's become like an afterthought in the media because, we also have this big blast that went off in Harlem.
Yep.
And it leveled like 2 buildings or something like that, some of these old brick buildings or whatever. And that just goes into more of this danger with all this gas, man. And it would be so much better to be running everything on electricity and running it off of, powering everything off grid and not powered with these fossil fuels, because let's face it, these fossil fuels, they can blow you up, they can burn you, they can poison you in your house, they poison the atmosphere. When you're driving them in your car, you're polluting. I mean, everything about them really doesn't make sense to keep using it. So I mean, the shift shouldn't be towards fracking. I mean, that's a huge mistake. Going towards fracking right now is a huge mistake because you're going towards something that is not really sustainable at all. Everyone knows that the gas supply isn't endless. Eventually, one day, maybe it may last 100 years or 200 years, but eventually the gas is going to run out. Then what? We got this sun right here that puts out enough energy to power anything we need. And then, I mean, the Earth itself is like a giant electromagnetic motor because of all the spinning metals inside of it and stuff. It's basically a huge motor, and that's why we have so much gravity. And that's why it's so hot down there. And there's so much energy there to be tapped into. I mean, it's just so stupid to be pushing these fossil fuels that are easily centralized, and that's exactly why it's done, because they're easily centralized. If you have everybody getting their own energy from the sun, then there's no way to control the grid. Everyone's going to have their own little grid at their house.
Right, and that's the inevitable goal for everybody with any kind of conscience, is that we get people to the point where they really don't need anybody anymore, and we can go into a post-scarcity economy because everyone can really provide for themselves using tech. And then when we talk about work or labor, it's going to be more like a labor of love, because most of the stuff we need to have life and survive and have a decent living can be done pretty cheaply with modern tech, if not basically free except for materials. And there's a totally huge, endless amount of materials we can do with hemp. So you can build a house out of hemp using solar powered robotic 3D printing, and it's pretty much carbon zero. And we'll get to that point eventually where everybody has these domiciles, and then, as you get more and more, I guess, accreditation, where you become more and more valuable to society, we'll have different tiers, I suppose, but we're not going to have money or anybody going hungry, cold, or without education, the ability to better themselves.
I saw this really cool, I keep seeing these really cool, alternative energies, and that actually gives me an idea. We should have this guy, Michael Rodriguez, on our show from Occupy Tesla. He knows a bunch of cool off-grid info and stuff. So we should actually try to get him on sooner or later. But I saw this electricity generator where it's like a corkscrew, and it's like slightly faced downhill, and then it's like it has a trough, and then you like run water through it, and the water going down the hill spins this corkscrew thing. And then it spins a generator or whatever if you want to hook it up to something mechanical or whatever you need. I mean, there's just so many ways of creating energy without having to use fossil fuels. And just like a lot of these Tesla ideas and this Tesla technology is that a lot of this energy is already there. It's in the atmosphere. It's down. It works from the motor of the Earth. And the relationship between that and the atmosphere creates a lot of electricity.
Oh yeah. It's electromagnetic. It's essentially endless, and it's going to be there as long as there's a reaction with the core of the Earth and the sun's pull and everything like that. So yeah, man, you can do geothermal plants too, where they can make power from the Earth's heat and spin a turbine. So you can combine that with a Tesla energy field to power, handheld stuff and run pretty much your grid and your coil system with your transfer systems and all the conductors and stuff like that. So yeah, you can go, I mean, the people with the money that bury things underground are already completely off the so-called fossil fuel grid. Don't need it at all. Don't even need the solar. Everything is already internalized with nuclear backups, thorium nuclear backups. So if all this stuff was allowed to come to the surface and wasn't just, like we love to say, hogged or bogarted by the military-industrial complex, if swords were turned into plowshares, we'd be off planet within, I don't know, I would venture to guess 5 decades, and we'd be out there colonizing. But something or someone or some force always keeps us, divided. We can never get to that point.
It's part of our primitive instincts, man, I think. It's part of our design, it's part of our evolution, but I think our evolution also includes getting past that point. So sooner or later, I think we're going to get there. It may take a bunch of people fighting each other for thousands and thousands of years, but I think eventually we'll probably get there.
Right. And the last true age of man, or the 5th age, is supposed to be 4000 BC, when we were at this appropriate or approximate, technology level where we're able to have, close to or equivalent things of today. And how did it end? Well, if you listen to ancient proverbs from ancient Greece, it was, Lemuria and Atlantis basically exchanged some kind of fire of some huge WMD magnitude and wiped each other out. Atlantis sank, and then Lemuria became what's known as, I guess, the Sahara in northern Africa. So there's always these fossil evidences of things being very, very advanced in the past and being subsequently wiped out when people get too greedy and too powerful in concert.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt that humankind would wipe itself out. I mean, we're almost at that point now. I mean, that's what
we're here.
That's what Condoleezza Rice is pushing for. That's for sure. I mean, they're trying to amp this thing up. They're trying to heighten the tensions as much. They think that the way to do diplomacy is to heighten the tensions. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like, have you ever won an argument? Do you ever legitimately win an argument by heightening the conversation to a screaming match? No. When you heighten to a screaming match, nobody listens. Everyone just goes against each other. Everyone disagrees with each other when you do that, right?
Right.
So I mean, that's their foreign policy. That's a little glimpse into the foreign policy of this country. Let's just bully everybody into doing what we want. And if we can't bully them, then we're going to bully one of their proxies and push our weight around in one of their proxies, just like we did in Ukraine. Just like we did when we backed this whole coup d'etat and all this whole new government that all of a sudden has a prime minister which just happens to be handpicked by the State Department, which just happens to be a former central banker. I mean, it's just like our foreign policy is completely backwards. We should be making friendly negotiations and business partnerships with these people, not installing new governments, considering that the democratically elected government was elected. You know what I mean? I mean, it was even though I don't believe in democracy, still we shouldn't be overthrowing democracies in the name of democracy. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right, and it's just we're inching towards the end game. The end game is going to be where there's going to be some power that controls some technology and force of dedicated enough people with enough expertise that they just can't really be stopped, or the course of the future that they plan out can't really be changed. Are we at that precipice right now? Yes, I believe we're here at that point that we've always talked about. It's going in very, very slow motion. That's the problem and the thing is we're delaying it. Every time we talk about these things, every time it gets into a global consciousness, it's delayed and things are changed. And, a new future path is taken. So all you can really do is just start buying into what you know is the truth and start disbelieving all this lies and illusions that, basically serve as fodder for, I guess we always like to say, the sheeple. This is the grass they eat.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many different ways that we could start fighting back personally, and it can be something as little as shopping at the farmer's market or getting 2 solar panels or whatever. We're trying to get some solar panels here for my aquaponic system so that the thing's all the way off the grid.
Yep, and they're really cheap. I mean, you can get grid system that'll more or less, if you put it on both sides of your roof from Costco, it's $7,000 a side, and once you have both sides going on enough of a day with enough sunlight, you're not going to buy any electricity that day. You'll probably feed back into the grid. So for a $14,000 investment, if you save $100 or $200 a month on electricity, it's going to pay off very, very quickly. And eventually it's going to become something where it really increases the resale value of a home as electricity gets more and more expensive, because it will. Because our electrical grid is built to consume finite resources, and it is always used as a way to control and manipulate public, basically trust and providing for their necessities. It can be easily cut off, and now the technology is popping up where that's not so much true anymore.
Yeah, and the whole idea, and it goes with what we were talking about earlier, how we keep seeing these civilizations rise and fall and rise and fall, and we keep trying to figure out, okay, where did they go wrong? Well, it's the same thing that's happening with our grid, and with our corporations and with our businesses and with our bureaucracies and all the parts of our system. They're all built the same way, for the most part. Yeah, there's some that are a little different, and the ones that are a little different, like for instance with the worker-owned corporations, they're actually shown to be more efficient, more profitable, because every worker has a stake in the company, and every worker has a vote in which direction the company goes. And guess what? These workers aren't really concerned about minimum wage because they're shareholders in the company. They make a dividend, they make a profit. So it's a whole different way, it's a whole different idea, because what we need to do is stop relying on this centralized pyramid scheme and start becoming more self-reliant with almost everything. Self and community reliant, instead of being highly, highly centralized with the federal government or like with Obamacare. And obviously there's an issue with the healthcare system, but putting the government in charge of a gigantic bureaucracy isn't really the answer to fix it,
Right. I mean, it can't be fixed. Something like healthcare needs to be completely taken over into a department for the public good. We really need something like that, as opposed to a security apparatus that takes away things that we all cherish, aka rights, like the DHS. We really need something like the Department of Public Good, like the DPG. And that'll include things like education, and get rid of the Department of Education and take healthcare and make these things they're not even government functions. They'll be controlled completely by civilian, workforces. They won't have any accountability to some corporate backed interest, and it'll be separate from Wall Street. and it'll take into account things we all need. It'll also roll in agriculture. All these things need to be rolled in. Water, power, all of these things that are Maslowian, that everyone needs for life, comfort, security, basically for survival. They can't be allowed to be controlled by anybody that's non-elected and need to be functioning as, not even a company. They need to be functioning as non-profit and have the budget they need to function regardless. It has to come from somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like these water companies, where just like what we saw in West Virginia, where this thing gets completely polluted, and then there's really nobody that's going to be held accountable. But I'll tell you what, these guys do take profits. They do take a lot of money out of this thing. But then in the end, nobody's accountable. Like it's like completely like they take the profits, and then everyone takes that, and then whenever something goes wrong, then it's the taxpayers that end up having to pay this whole thing off anyways. And then you have the problem of the middleman effect, where basically the government is basically a middleman and it's basically an agent. And all they do is water down the money that you put in. It gets spent on a non-constructive, like an unproductive bureaucracy. They don't create anything. They don't do anything. All they do is spend a lot of money and then administer some stuff. That's basically it. That's all they do is they administrate. But unfortunately, that takes a lot of the value out of the money that you're paying in taxes, which is why taxes just don't make sense.
Well, you could just co-opt anything you'd need for life. There's co-op power companies. There's co-ops that you can buy food at that are grocery stores where things are cheap, like 23 cents a pound for an organic squash. Things that are unheard of unless you're by a farm. That you can co-op everything. You can have CSAs where you purchase memberships. People need to get involved in saving businesses that are necessary for their own survival. There's luxuries, and let the Fortune 500 companies compete and make these mini, senseless monopolies where people buy brand names and they're all made in the same factories in the third world where people jump out of the factory buildings. You know what I mean? We don't need those things. We need to basically take control for the stuff we all have to have, and we have to have things local. When there's empty lots in neighborhoods, people should be angry at that. Those should be crops for them. And the city should pay for that. And there should be funds set up for that, because the taxes, what the heck are we using them for? Why do we have Department of Park and Recreation that's not out there planning free food for everyone? What are they doing all day?
They're mowing the grass, man.
That's useless.
For the cows that aren't there to eat it.
That's stupid. What are they doing? That's just what a waste everywhere we have. Everywhere. What is the sanitation department should be taking whatever's biodegradable and giving it to the park and rec department so they can go spread it around and grow a bunch of food everywhere. I mean, these interdepartmental reorganizations need to happen at a community level. So something like a Seattle food forest can just be the beginning of it.
Yeah, and the problem is that let's say, for instance, we wanted to go into Balboa Park and just plant a food forest, which I want to do, which is a big giant park here in San Diego. They would probably try to shut us down. Let's face it.
If we got enough big people, a petition, a hearing in front of a council, and changed it into a law, and then said that any empty lot that's not being used with plans for development, that would be key. If there's no plans for development submitted, then that lot should be allowed to be appropriated by the city for use for food, to be given to local food banks. Free organic produce. I mean, they're not hard programs to initiate. There has to be a need and a want and an itch. People need to feel the itch because they need to see, I guess, enough other people suffering in their face before we initiate these programs. That would be, to me, quite simple to do. There's so much waste already and stupid money being spent on landscaping.
Yeah, and they like I was saying, if we weren't able to get a bunch of people together to oppose that, they really would try to come down on us.
Who would oppose that? Who wouldn't sign that petition? I mean,
exactly.
Do you want to use bank-owned who do nothing with it and actually just ruin your life because they're awful? bank-owned empty lots need to be planted with crops, and then those crops need to be picked up and given to food banks by these departments that have a bunch of guys doing a bunch of stupid stuff that no one needs to do. Just like the Department of Water should be drilling wells. Just whenever randomly, hey, do you own your home? Yep. You've been approved by lottery. We want to dig a well in your backyard. Are you okay with that? City of San Diego Department of Water. What do they do all day? Fix a bunch of mains for this decrepit water system? Start getting people off of it.
Well, I'll tell you what the people that make a lot of money that work in the water district do. They just sit on their asses all day and sit on their computer and play games and sit on Facebook probably. You know, the guys that actually do the work for the water system, which are the guys that are probably the union pipe fitting type people, they're the guys that do all the work. The bureaucrats just sit around all day and then they get they make $100,000 a year or $150,000 a year or whatever they're making. I mean, it's just so backwards, man. If the people ran it the way it should be run, where it's still a corporation, but it's owned by the people that live there, it's owned by the community, then it wouldn't be like that. It would be a lot different.
Multinational companies should never be in charge of something that you need to survive because they don't have any vested interest in you having what you need beyond what you can afford to pay and the most they can squeeze out of you. Whereas opposed to an employee-owned company in a community where they live, well, they have to answer to you. If something were to happen to your food and that was the situation, you can go over to that guy's house and be like, hey, dude, there's no food at the food pantry. Like, what's going on? What are you going to do if Vons runs out of food? Go pick it at the corporate offices where no one's there? They'll just lock up? I mean, that's where we're at now because who controls the food? Like 4 companies control basically all the food now, so.
Yeah, there was this liquor store / Mexican market next door to where my first job was, and it was in National City, man. Really, really poor, bad area. But I just saw that they converted the store. It's called Big Ben's Market into a organic food store. It's pretty awesome, and it's targeted for the low income. It's like really affordable organic foods and stuff.
Right.
And then they're also doing classes and teaching people about the food and all this. Cause, National City right here has like the 3rd or 4th highest rate of diabetes in California. And it's a small town.
Right.
It's not a small town, but
it's a food desert in the middle of Southern California. It's so stupid that it's gotten to that point, and it's all income based because places like Whole Foods or Jimbo's naturally and stuff like that will never dare go to any of those spots. And that's why we need to have these little tiny, city run or community run little plots and have that stuff be delivered out to food pantries and it'll be, distributed accordingly.
Yeah, there's just all kinds of ways of rethinking it. There's letting people farm in your yard, letting people plant gardens in your yard if you don't have the time, or if you don't have the space, find someone with a yard that's like going to waste. I mean, how many people do you know? I mean, I know a lot of people that have like nice fruit trees in their yard where they don't even harvest the fruit off these trees. There's one that I've been wanting to stop by. It's in my neighborhood. It's like 2 blocks away, but this lady has this lemon tree in her front yard. And I shit you not, there's like 300 lemons on this thing, and they look like they're all ripe right now. And I can tell that they're not taking them, so I'm thinking of like just going and knocking on her door and saying, hey, I'll give you $10 if you let me, or first I'll ask her if I can get them for free. If not, I'll be like, I'll give you $10, let me take your lemons. Cause dude, there's probably like, 40 pounds of lemons on this tree.
Exactly. People don't get that they can actually make money, if they don't want any of this produce and they just have yards with worthless grass in the front and there's nothing going on. And they're prime places that they water. I mean, if you planted a row of whatever, or just even a couple fruit trees, you can make, a good amount of money off of them. Even if you didn't want the trees, we have to just find some kind of crop sharing service that'll go around and pick up. What
we gotta do is make an app.
Yes.
Anyone listening that wants to do
Food
this,
app.
I don't care because I don't got the time to do it or the resources. But if someone can make an app that would map out all the fruit trees that are in any given area, that would be awesome, and that would be pretty valuable in a time of in a time of need, in a time of recession. I mean, I know in my area because this where I live, it used to back in the day, it used to be like a citrus town. They used to grow the most lemons anywhere in the country here, and then it actually then it was a hemp play. They used to grow the most hemp out of anywhere, but then they banned hemp in the 40s, and we became a military industrial complex town, because they used to build all the weapons and stuff right here, but. In my area, there's a lot of houses where, like, you know, they came down, they cut out the fruit trees, but they would leave like 1 or 2, 3 trees in each backyard, so that people would move in, they'd already have a tree. So there's a lot of fruit trees out here that are like 50, 60 years old. Like the one in my backyard, I got an orange tree, and these things are just producers, man. You can harvest them twice a year too, in this area. So it's like. I know in my area, there's probably enough fruit trees growing to legitimately feed people the amount of fruit that they actually need.
I think we throw away half of all the food we grow anyway, and it's sitting there and it's rotting in granaries everywhere, and it's just the economic hedge market for keeping food prices high. And that's why we got to get corporate control out of the picture slowly, community by community. People already are going. I mean, farmers markets are teeming now. And as demand increases, you know, they will buy more and more acres, and they will be able to drive their prices lower and lower and hire more and more hands to help them. And you'll see cities everywhere being surrounded by farms again, and it'll get back to a local produce, because the people that have the ability to pay even a little bit more and can make the trip somewhere to a farmer market will do it, because they know their health now. We see now the pesticides and the chemicals in some of these things like Roundup, they're showing that they're causing damage to, you know, male fertility now. So if you're a guy and you're eating conventional produce and non-organic beef with cattle eating GMO corn, it can potentially destroy your chemical manhood. You can become castrated in effect from eating this stuff. So if any guys out there listening and want to have kids, you know, you got to go the natural route, I guess the paleo organic route, to ensure the little spuds don't die.
It's worth the extra few bucks if you're buying your food. If you're growing it, I mean, all the better, man. But it's definitely worth the extra few bucks just to, you know, at least with the major stuff. I mean, there's a list of like 15 different foods that you definitely don't want to eat, quote unquote, conventionally. I don't even.
Don't eat anything. Why would you eat anything?
It sucks that they call it conventional, because this stuff is not even conventional. Conventional should be basically the organic stuff, you know?
Right. Well, after the 70s, during the so-called Green Revolution, when they used nitrogen-based fertilizers that are kind of made out of thin air, essentially, they really are. They combine those with, you know, the genetic modification and the advanced Roundup stuff that really it penetrates the cell membranes. Even if it's something like a lemon or a lime or something with a harder outer casing, you know, watch how fast they you know will go bad if they have the fungicide on them. It still will affect the quality of the food in a lot of ways. If it's breaking through the outside thicker membrane, it's going to seep into that inner stuff you're eating anyway. So there's services from local organic farms, like from me, where it's, you know, $60 gets you a gigantic bag of produce delivered to your house. Every week it amounts to about $9 a day to eat really healthy vegetables and fruits, natural, organic, local. It kills off all the big corporate guys, and then you just, you know, most people I know can afford, you know, $9 a day for their veggies, and then you throw in, you know, a couple other things, and you got great stir fries, salads, and all that other stuff. So it's definitely doable.
So once again, man, it's just back to the point that we have to just keep building. And then we keep informing people, we keep building up new ideas, new institutions, new businesses, new cooperations. And then sooner or later we just get to that breaking point. And hopefully it goes the right way and not the wrong way. It seems to me like we're in the dark ages right now. I mean, to me, if we look back 50 years from now, we're going to say, yeah, those are the dark ages when we were all killing each other and stuff. We didn't realize that we could live peacefully. You know, so I think that's the show, guys. You know, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys catch Levon on Friday and bookmark UCY and catch us every day of the week.